October 1912, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A man steps onto a stage with a folded speech in his pocket and a bullet in his chest. He has already been shot. The blood is real. The pain is real. Someone tells him to stop, to sit down, to let a doctor decide what's next. He looks down. He checks himself. He decides the bullet did not puncture his lung, and then he speaks anyway for 90 minutes. Not because this is noble, but because stopping would mean admitting defeat. This is Theodore Roosevelt, not a myth, not a statue, but a man who believed effort was a moral obligation, even when it nearly killed him. And the question is not whether he was right. The question is whether he ever knew when he was wrong. Welcome to the House of Syx. Tonight we present Bullets, Bears, and Bull Moose. Welcome to the House of Syx. I'm Jen.
Jared.
You want to talk about politics?
No.
We're going to today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I thought of this episode. You should know what we're talking about today because I've already talked to you about this. I thought of this episode topic while watching football like a week ago. And I thought to myself, because we live in a 120-year-old house, and I thought, what in the world would the ghosts in the house think of football?
Oh, I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
because these are the type of conversations we have.
Right. Well, it was, who was playing? It was like Oregon and somebody else. And Oregon, I remember specifically because it had the green and yellow, like the crazy colored uniforms. Mm-hmm. And so I had to look up the history of football and found out that it was much older than I thought it was. It was one of the first games was played in 1869, which is bonkers. I'll talk about the history of football a little bit later in the episode, so we don't have to hash that all right now. Yeah. I know it's very exciting, but I wanted to know, did they know what football was?
Okay.
Now, football did not become mainstream until the 50s and 60s when there were TVs in everybody's household. So at the time that this house was built, no, they didn't really have a concept of what football is like today. But football was a thing. Mm-hmm. And while I was researching the history of football, which is what I do on a random Wednesday night or whatever night it was, I don't think it was that because I don't know when football comes on anymore. I leaned into this person that we're going to talk about. And I thought, we're going to be talking about Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay.
That's where politics come. Not current politics, because we don't talk about politics on this podcast.
Not touching that shit.
Oh, no, I'm going to have a really hard time not saying anything about my political beliefs. And here's the thing. Anybody that knows us or that listens and pays attention, you probably know what our political beliefs are, but I just don't feel like this is the time to be airing out all of that because it's just a crazy time right now. Regardless of how you believe, it's a really weird time in politics. So, yeah.
Okay.
Theodore Roosevelt, and he is related to football in some way. We'll talk about it again a little bit later. But what an amazing and interesting man he was. He had some bad flaws too that I'm not sugarcoating anything in here. He wasn't all glitter and rainbows and things like that. He had some things, but he's a very interesting man. What do you know about Teddy Roosevelt?
I hate the pop quiz part of this show.
You do know he was president.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. What else? Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, I think. I mean, nothing,
You're good.
Substantial.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, you ready?
I'm ready.
You want to hear about him?
Yeah.
Sherlock does too. Look at him. He's listening to every word that I am saying. All right. We're going to go back let's go back, because I have to put a little bit of context in. This is your most boring part, and it's the most interesting part for me because I love researching.
That's really an assumption that you're making that's not fair, but okay.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it unfair?
Carry on.
Okay. To understand why Theodore Roosevelt mattered, you have to understand the country that he was born into, because he was born into a time that it was just a very big shift in the history of this country. And I feel like you could probably say that any year
right.
is probably true, because we've had a time in the last 250 years we've been around, but this is the United States in the late 19th century. The Civil War is over, but there are a lot of unresolved issues. Slavery is gone, but equality is not. Reconstruction is collapsing, and the federal government is quietly retreating from enforcing civil rights in the South. And at the same time, the country is industrializing at the speed of light. Things are changing crazy here. Railroads are stretching from coast to coast, which interestingly, we talk about trains a lot in this house because there is a track over yonder and it is loud. We talk about railroads a lot. And they are not just moving people and goods, but they are concentrating power as well. A handful of men control transportation, steel, oil, banking, and manufacturing, which is all of those are absolutely exploding at this point in time. And they're not quite called monopolies yet. They are simply considered the cost of progress. There are very few regulations, little oversight, almost no protection for workers. Cities are growing rapidly as people flood in for factory jobs, and housing is overcrowded, working conditions dangerous, injury and death are common enough to be considered routine and not that big of a deal. Labor unions do exist, but they are very weak, fragmented, and often met with violence and riots. This is all normal. And politics reflect this imbalance. Campaigns are often funded by industrial interest. The line between business and government is thin to the point of invisibility, and corruption is not shocking, it's expected. This is how men made their fortunes. And presidents before Roosevelt tended to act very cautiously, deferring to Congress and avoiding confrontation with powerful economic forces. Now, the problem before his presidency is after the Civil War, the country is exhausted by strong-armed executive power. Lincoln's presidency, which he did utilize his executive power very bigly, his legacy is looming large over the country. Obviously, after his assassination, there is a deep anxiety about concentrated authority. So for decades, presidents mostly deferred to Congress, acted as administrators, not leaders, and let economic power operate unchecked. I have so many things to say. I'm just going to keep going. And then there is the land of the country. The American frontier is closing. Forests are being logged aggressively and with no constraints. Wildlife populations are collapsing. Rivers are polluted. And the prevailing belief is that natural resources exist to be used, consumed, and exhausted in the service of growth. And there is absolutely no conservation ethic at all. No shared sense that the government has a role in protecting the land for future generations. It's just all being eaten up by all of this growth. So big picture first of what the United States looked like. Theodore Roosevelt was born in 1958, and technically the United States at this point in his time is coast to coast on paper, but large portions of the West are thinly governed, poorly mapped, and actively contested. There are still violent dispossessing of indigenous nations. This is an ugly time. Doesn't look
Good.
You did say 1958, though.
It is 1858.
You did say 1958.
Well, it's hard not to say 1958.
Yeah.
By the time Theodore Roosevelt becomes president, there are 45 states. That's what it looks like. So at that point, geographically huge, politically immature, economically powerful, but ethically, nope. Yep. So I think that at that point when he became president, the country had expanded faster than it had learned how to really govern. Because I don't think people outside of the United States that have not been here do not realize how freaking big this country is.
Right.
It's huge. You can drive 21 hours and still be in the same state.
Yeah.
That's Alaska if you drive, because it's not. But most states you can drive through in, 4 or 5 hours?
Sure.
The normal size states, not like Maryland. What's that, like 4 minutes? I don't know. It's a little state. What are you looking at your watch? What do you got going on over there?
Nothing.
You getting texts from your girlfriend?
Nope, just my son.
Oh, tell him I said hi. Okay. All right. So let's go into the timeline of I'm gonna try to keep it. I went down some rabbit holes like I do every time I'm researching an episode, and I could talk about so many different things with this dude because he did so many things. So Theodore Roosevelt was born in 1858 in New York City to a wealthy family with very strong social standing and very high expectations. This is obviously the Roosevelts are a famous family. There are multiple politicians that came out of it. I hope you know the other one. Anyways, materially, he wants for nothing. Physically, though, he is fragile from the very start. Most people don't know this. He suffers from severe asthma, and this is not the mild, manageable kind. This is the kind that leaves him gasping for air and unable to sleep lying down, convinced at times that he is going to die in the night. His entire childhood is shaped by this. He's got illness, fear, and constantly fearing that his body's going to fail him. I don't know how I made it, frankly, because this is not a time when childhood disease was handled. His mother, Mitty, is warm, socially graceful. She's a Southern girl. She is emotionally affectionate and represents calm, comfort, charm, and emotional closeness. His father does not. He's not a bad dad, but he is the more consequential influence in his life. Roosevelt absolutely idolizes him. His father is physically strong, morally upright, generous with his wealth, and deeply involved in civic life. He obviously comes by it naturally, and he is everything that young Theodore feels he is not. And rather than shielding his son from that contrast, he names it. At one point, his father tells him, "You may have the mind, but you have not the body, and without the body, the mind cannot go far." Shit. Thanks, Dad. That's like saying, well, you're weak and sick, so sorry. That's not very nice. I don't think he was trying to be cruel, but for Teddy Roosevelt, that landed like a challenge. From that moment on, this is documented, Roosevelt does not see his health as a condition to be managed. He sees it as a personal failure that he needs to correct. And he begins what can only be described as a lifelong project of self-reinvention. Exercise becomes a discipline, discipline becomes morality, and his morality becomes his identity. This goes on for the rest of his entire life. He starts lifting weights, he pushes his body beyond comfort, and he treats weakness as something to be overcome, not accommodated. And this doesn't cure his asthma, but it gives him control. He makes his body stronger, he increases his lung capacity and stamina and confidence in his body. So he did everything right. I don't know if he did it for the right reasons. I don't think it was necessarily to be healthy, per se. It was more maybe to prove a point that he could be something.
Right.
What are you thinking? You're looking at me like, God,
no.
Here she goes again.
No, I'm agitated right now.
Okay. With what?
I have not said 3 words because there's just nothing I can say.
Okay. I'll get through this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
trying to add something, but I'm adding nothing. My microphone might as well be off.
Okay, so we'll get more into... There's some interesting shit coming up, I swear to God. Okay? So by the time Theodore Roosevelt reaches his late teens and early 20s, the sickly child is gone, and in its place is something much sharper, more restless, and almost compulsive. He attends Harvard. Not too shabby. He immediately distinguishes himself not by intelligence, but by intensity. He studies obsessively, reads constantly, writes at a pace that alarms the people around him on history, biology, philosophy, politics. Nothing is off limits to him, and it's not casual curiosity. It's just like he had this voracious appetite for learning and doing and being and all of the things.
Reminds me of somebody.
Who does it remind you of? I don't do it well. Like, this guy was out of control.
You don't know how to, you always are, it's partially you. It's a good portion you. It's majority of you. There we go.
Well.
That's a good thing.
Okay. So he's physically stronger now. He boxes, he hikes, he lifts weights, he argues, he debates, he writes, he reads. This guy, I don't think he slept. I think he did all of the above but sleeping. Before he is out of his early 20s, he publishes his first major historical work. Not a hobby project, it's a serious researched book that establishes him as an intellectual president. And this was basically announcing himself. Socially, he is earnest to the point of awkwardness. He does not glide through elite spaces. He charges through them like a frickin' bull in a china shop. He believes deeply in self-improvement, discipline, and moral responsibility, and he expects everybody else to as well. If everybody else does not meet his moral expectations, they have failed. After Harvard, Roosevelt does not drift. He moves fast, as usual. He writes, publishes, and he enters politics pretty early. In his early 20s, he is already building a public identity as a serious reform-minded guy, not just society kid, which he was. In 1880, he marries Alice Hathaway Lee. He is intensely devoted to her, and his letters make it clear he is not playing around. He is a man with a lot of energy and a strong sense of moral purpose, and he's trying to channel all of this into his public life. By the early 1880s, he is active in New York politics and already making a name for himself as someone who will pick fights with party machines and corruption. Think anti-Tammany Hall. He is not the most powerful person in the room, but he is very loud, persistent, and unusually comfortable making enemies. He has no problem picking fights, that either physically or mentally. What are you thinking?
No.
Okay. And then in early 1884, things are about to get complicated for Dude because Alice is pregnant and they're expecting their first child. And on February 12th, 1884, Alice gives birth to their daughter, Alice. That's really strange to me. This is the second story that we've done where there is a girl junior. That's just, it's fine. It's
no
fine.
No imagination.
That's really, I feel like any junior is no imagination. It's like a family, it's like a tradition. Like, it's fine. Well, 2 days later, on February 14th, 1884, Roosevelt's mother, Mittie, dies of typhoid fever. Tragic. That same day, Alice dies. His wife and his mother died on the same day. Oh, that's rough. Contemporary accounts described it as Bright's disease, which at the time was a broad label often used for serious kidney problems. But I mean, she just had a baby, so I'm wondering if it was complications due to labor.
Right.
I'm just saying. In one day, he lost his mother and his wife, and he's left with a newborn daughter. He writes in his diary, "The light has gone out of my life." And then he stops writing about Alice entirely. He just shuts down. This is a rough day. Oh, okay, we're back. I had to reset equipment here. My mic was in my lap. Right. So this is important because this guy loved his wife deeply, and then she's gone. And his mother, he was close to his mother. So that's really sad. He does not process his grief very well. He just nopes right out of life. He leaves. He leaves New York. He leaves politics. He's out of there. Okay? He leaves his infant daughter behind with family because this is the 1800s. Men don't raise no babies. Just saying. He goes west to the Dakota Territory. Assume that's where North and South Dakota are currently, and it's frickin' freezing up there. I don't know why. I mean, to be fair, I don't think this guy holidays. He's not enjoying life.
No, not anymore.
No. Or I don't think ever. I think he was trying to conquer life. I don't think he was trying to enjoy it. I don't think he was interested in enjoyment. I think he was interested in just,
I do now. Yeah. Yeah.
Mixing it up. I don't know what that means. This place is a territory. It is violent. It is largely indifferent to whether he survives or not. And he's not doing okay. This is his self-imposed exile. And out west, Roosevelt remakes himself again, this time not as a student or a thinker, but as a frontiersman. Because why wouldn't some rich 20-something-year-old go out to the Dakotas and become a freaking cowboy?
Right. I would.
Really?
Yeah.
You want to be a cowboy?
I actually do.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Why do you want to be a cowboy? I think it's maybe romanticized. I don't think it's everything you think it is.
I just want to have a job that's outside full time and taking care of things in my land and.
You're going to cultivate the land.
Yeah.
Be one with nature.
But that's not going to happen. So here I am.
Learning something new every day. Well, he becomes a rancher. That sounds like fun. It's not. That's a lot of hard work. He rides long distances. He hunts relentlessly. He sleeps rough, like out in the open.
I was going to say he sleeps naked. I don't know. Sleeps rough.
I mean, that's not safe if you're out in nature. It is not safe to sleep naked.
Yep.
That's not a good idea. And he pushes his body until exhaustion drowns out everything else. And I think that's what he's trying to do. I think he's trying to work himself to the bone so he doesn't think about Alice anymore.
It's pretty sad.
That's really sad. However, the West has given him something that the East couldn't: silence, hard rules, and immediate consequences. If you work, you live. If you don't, you die. I think that's what he was looking for. And there was no room here for sentimentality, and I think that suited him just fine. I think he was tired of humans. And this is the period in time that really hardens him, and it deepens his love of the natural world. It strengthens his belief that struggle is clarifying and that comfort is corrosive. It also reinforces a dangerous idea that suffering is not just unavoidable, but necessary.
It's dark.
It is dark. I'm sure I'm going to come off sounding really dumb here, but there is a philosophy that's basically like the yin and yang, that light and dark coexist together and that they cannot exist without each other. There cannot be joy without suffering. Yeah. I think that's just humans trying to make themselves feel better because there is suffering, and there's suffering everywhere.
Yeah, right. I agree.
I'm not saying it's not true. I guess if you were happy all the time, you wouldn't know what true joy felt like, but I don't think that means you have to suffer to get there.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of crap to me. I don't like philosophy. That's not true, I do. I think it's very interesting. I think that Aristotle and Plato and all of those, I think they're very interesting. That's another episode. During this time, he survives financial loss. He survives physical danger. He survives his grief by never slowing down. This dude never did. And in the process, he begins to believe something that will define the rest of his life. That pain can be outrun, loss mastered, and effort is always the answer. This is not good. This is it obviously honed him into who he becomes, and he did become a good man, a great man even. But he also thought that if anybody else didn't put in as much effort as he did, then they were a failure.
Right.
That's not cool because, dude, you need a nap. You aren't sleeping. You need to you need to stop and smell the roses. I do not think Teddy ever stopped and smelled the roses. He thought that was dumb. We don't have time for that crap. Nobody cares about roses.
He was just planting the roses.
Oh, yeah. I think he cared about that the roses existed.
Right.
You just weren't supposed to enjoy them.
Okay.
Okay. And then he finally returns to the East, and he is not just ambitious at this point in time. He's got some plans, all right? In 1886, he marries Edith Kermit Caro. I don't know why her middle name is Kermit. It's kind of cute in a froggy kind of way. She is a childhood acquaintance he had known since they were young. They had 5 children together. So in addition to Alice, his firstborn, which she comes to live with him, they have Theodore Roosevelt Jr., of course, Kermit, Ethel Roosevelt, Archibald Roosevelt, that's got to be a frickin' family name, and Quentin Roosevelt. I've never heard of him. I think I need to look that up. So 6 children in total. That's a lot of kids. And Edith is more private than Alice Roosevelt Longworth. She was a stabilizing presence in his life and actively managed both the household and Theodore. He needed to be managed. This guy. He returns to politics with the reputation for being stubborn, energetic, and inconvenient to powerful people. He becomes a civil service commissioner. I don't know what that is. And he pushes against patronage and corruption. As New York City Police Commissioner, after that, he becomes famous for walking the streets at night, unannounced, catching officers asleep, drunk, or ignoring their duty. He's cleaning up the streets, starting with the police officers. Yep. He believes in enforcements. He believes in rules. Now, I can appreciate that because I love rules. And he believes that rules mean nothing if no one is willing to apply them, and he goes after this aggressively. He needs to calm down. During this time, he also cultivates the parts of himself that make him unforgettable. He boxes constantly. This is his thing, boxing. He's really into it. He rides horses, hunts obsessively, and again, writing, reading, absolutely nonstop. This guy isn't sleeping. He really needs a nap. He understands that public image is power, and he doesn't shy away from it. He talks to reporters. He gives interviews. He lets himself become associated with action, discipline, and physicality in a political world that has been avoiding all 3. And then the country goes to war. I don't know if you know this, but in 1898, the Spanish-American War breaks out. And Roosevelt, who is currently serving as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, not too shabby, he does something that totally just encapsulates who he is. He resigns. He quits. He helps form a volunteer cavalry regiment that they call the Rough Riders. You've heard of the Rough Riders,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He helps form it. It is made up of, listen to this collection of misfits we got here. We've got cowboys. We've got athletes. We've got Ivy Leaguers. We've got adventurers. This Ivy Leaguers and athletes with cowboys and adventurers, who are these people? No, but they're the Rough Riders. And they go to Cuba. And he leads from the front. He charges up San Juan Hill. This is the moment that makes him famous. Okay? This is batshit what he does. Okay? This is where he becomes legend. For realsies. This is the real fucking deal here. In July, this is crazy. I can't even. In July of 1898, Spanish-American War, American forces are fighting Spanish troops near Santiago de Cuba. Do you like how I said that? The objective is to take a series of fortified hills overlooking the city, most notably San Juan Hill and Kettle Hill. He is a lieutenant colonel, and he's leading the Rough Riders. And this is a volunteer cavalry unit on paper. They are mounted infantry, but they often jump off their horses and fight on foot because. And here the terrain is brutal and it's super hot, okay? The Spanish troops are dug in above them with rifles and artillery. It's not looking good because the American forces are pinned down. They're taking fire and they're waiting on orders that are just not coming. Everything's very chaotic, it's pretty unclear. And Roosevelt is like, I've had enough of this shit. Nobody's making decisions. He makes a decision. He gathers whoever is nearest, his own men of other units, black soldiers from the Buffalo Soldiers, and he leads an uphill, which that's not smart, an uphill charge against fortified positions. To be clear, this is not a cavalry charge. This is like chaos. There's just like men everywhere. He starts out on horse. He's super highly visible, jumps off his horse on foot, waves his men forward, exposing himself to fire. Like, just, this is crazy. He should have died. He didn't. He later admits he is partly acting on instinct and partly on frustration that no one is moving. Seriously, all these guys should have died. They didn't. They frickin' took over the hill. That's crazy.
It is.
That's like a movie.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right.
This is why they make movies, because of crazy ass lunatics that do shit like that. And they're like, well, I mean, we wouldn't be hearing about it if it hadn't have been so awesome and they hadn't have won.
Impatience.
I mean, he should have gotten a slap on the wrist for it, or worse, because he should not have been leading men up an uphill charge. That's just... So, it's crazy. Anyways, so first of all, the fact that he survives, that alone matters, obviously. And then several things happen almost immediately. He writes about it. And then the press writes about him. And photographers and illustrations start circulating, showing him leading this uphill charge and taking the hill. And he now becomes the American embodiment of courage and action. He leans into it and he allows the story to crystallize around him as the face of the charge, even though there were a lot of men involved, many that died. But he frames this as leadership under fire, decisive action in a moment of paralysis, which it was. That's true. But also, dude, like, they took the hill, but he's also responsible for a lot of men dying. I mean, I don't know what would have happened if he hadn't done it. They probably would have lost that little skirmish.
Right. And died. All of them died.
And all of them died.
It's a good story. That part.
Isn't that neat? Yeah. And this fits perfectly with the persona that he's been building for years. Energetic, fearless, doesn't need permission. Even though he likes the rules, he's a complicated man. Within months, San Juan Hill has become shorthand for something larger, the idea that Theodore Roosevelt does not hesitate when action is required. He uses this and runs, when he goes back to politics, he runs his campaigns like this. The war itself is very brief. Roosevelt's role in it was extremely visible and carefully documented after that shenanigans that he pulled. He returns home a national hero. Of course he does. He uses it. He's elected governor of New York because of it. He knows what he's doing. He immediately resumes fighting party machines and corporate influence, and this makes him popular with the public, but unbearable to political insiders, of course, because that's where the money is. So they do what political systems often do. They promote him out of the way. This is smart. He's nominated for vice president under William McKinley. Does that name ring a bell?
Yes.
It's about to. Do you remember Dan Quell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a funny vice president. Anyway, he can't spell. He actually can. That was a very funny moment when he misspelled. What was it? Potato?
Potato, yeah.
Potato. He put an E on potato. Right. That's just funny. That's just, now there is an E in potatoes. There's no E in potato. That's funny. Most of these kids listening aren't going to remember who Dan Quell is.
No.
Who is he vice president for?
I'm guessing, but I'm probably so wrong, but I thought it was a Bush.
I think it's the first Bush.
That's what I thought.
I think it's H.W.
I think that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
I think so, because Cheney was W's.
Correct. So it had to have been the first
I'm
Bush.
telling you, people forget who the vice president is.
Right. No, agreed.
I know. Right. So he's nominated for vice president, and William McKinley, September 1901. Do you know what happens? Ooh, this is rough. William McKinley is attending the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. At the time, public access to the president is pretty open. It's not uncommon for presidents to greet people by shaking hands out in the open, and there's minimal security. McKinley is greeting visitors in a receiving line, shaking hands. Among them is Leon Czolgosz, an American anarchist who believes the federal government represents oppression and concentrated power. Czolgosz conceals a handgun under a handkerchief wrapped around his hand, and when McKinley reaches him, he fires 2 shots at close range. McKinley initially survives, appears to be recovering. Doctors are seemingly optimistic, and for several days it seems like he's on the mend. Infection sets in.
Right.
8 days later, McKinley dies from complications related to his wounds. And in 1901, Theodore Roosevelt becomes president at the age of 45, which at the time is the youngest president in American history until JFK. Political powerhouse that tried to get him to just fade into the background, really, they fucked up. He's now in the most powerful seat
Yep.
in the world.
Yep.
He is energetic to the point of exhaustion to everybody around him, and deeply convinced that the presidency is meant to act. He's changing shit. He's not putting up with this anymore. He believes the president is a steward of the public interest, not a passive referee between Congress and industry. And if something threatens the nation, the law doesn't explicitly forbid action. He believes it is his responsibility to act anyway. Now, I agree with him. I do believe that that is the president's responsibility, but that had not been how it was going before, okay? So, of course, this philosophy drives everything that follows. He takes on powerful corporate trust. He does not want to dismantle capitalism. It's not what this is about. It's not what I said. He wants to rein it in. He believes monopolies distort democracy and weaken the country. Some trusts he breaks up, others he regulates, and the point is not destruction of these corporations. It's about controlling them and regulating them so that they do not get too powerful and out of control. I'm just going to let that sit. At the same time, now this is my favorite thing about Roosevelt.
Okay.
Okay? This is my favorite thing about him. What are you looking at?
Nothing.
You're looking up. What are you looking at?
No,
Is there a spider? Oh, God.
Keep going.
Okay, there's no spider. This is so cool. He is going to reshape America's relationship with its land. I'm so excited, people. Okay? He helps create and massively expand the national park system, national forest, wildlife refuges, and monuments. He places millions of acres under federal protection, often under fierce opposition from business interests and Western politicians. Because remember, they wanted to use up all the land and all of its resources. They wanted to drill, baby, drill. They wanted to rip out all the forests and use up all the wood. I don't know what they think that they were going to do after all the trees in the land are gone. Do you know there's more trees on the planet than in the galaxy? Stars in the galaxy? And more trees in the galaxy.
Lost me there.
There are more trees on planet Earth than stars in this galaxy. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
That's nuts. But anyways, before he did all this, forests are being logged aggressively. There's no long-term planning. There's no thought of replacing them. There's no thought of, rivers are polluted. Wildlife, they're dying. And the assumption is that basically land exists to be used until it's gone. FYI, we're not making any new land, people. Once it's used up and dead, this is how the Dust Bowl happened. I could do a whole episode on the freaking Dust Bowl. We just cultivated the land until it couldn't reproduce anymore. And then you know what happened? All the grasses, it all died. And all we had left was dust that was then allowed to just, and it killed people. You got to take care of, the land. This is serious. Why are you looking at me like
No,
that?
I don't even think I need to be here for this. Seriously, I don't.
So Roosevelt rejects all this. He's like, guys, we got to put some reins on here. And this is not because he's anti-business. He is not anti-capitalist. He's not. But he believes that a nation that destroys its own future you're just failing. This is basic responsibility. Come on. He builds a legal and administrative framework that forces the restraint. Over the course of his presidency, he protects roughly 230 million acres of land. Oh, that's cool.
You're a big park girl.
Oh, that's so cool. This is how it breaks down. 150 million plus acres designated as national forests. 5 national parks are created or expanded. 18 national monuments designated using the Antiquities Act. 50 plus wildlife refuges. 4 national game preserves. Now, I don't know what the point of a game preserve is. I didn't look that up because that's less exciting to me. Does that mean hunting preserves? I think so. Game
yes,
is
it
hunting.
Should, yes, right.
I mean, that's good. You can't have over animal population, but it also sounds not good. So this is the foundation of the modern American conservation system, okay? But what's interesting about this is the national forests don't mean you can't touch it. You can log and you can use the resources. You just have to do it responsibly where they can be replaced and reused.
Yep.
This is managed use. There can be logging, there can be mining, but it's regulated. The national parks are different. These lands are completely protected because they are irreplaceable. Once designated, they are meant to stay wild, no optimization, no monetization, completely preserved. These are parks such as Yosemite, Sequoia, Crater Lake. He frames them not as luxuries, but civic inheritance. I love that. That's so cute. And basically, they're places that belong to the people who aren't even born yet.
Okay.
They belong to everybody.
Right.
The people before us, the people after us. They have to stay exactly as is. And they put in protections that still shape environmental policy, land management, and federal authority over natural resources. Have you been to some national parks? I think you've been to a lot of them out west, like Yellowstone or Yosemite.
Nope.
It's so beautiful. Like, it's pretty. I will say the West has some of the awesomest national parks in the country, like Joshua Tree,
You're a big
Grand
fan.
Canyon, of course, Yellowstone, Yosemite. Like, they're all the freaking redwood forest. Have you been to the redwood forest?
Nope.
It is unimaginable how big these trees are.
And I like trees.
I like trees. At one point, one of the trees, and I don't like that they cut an opening in so that they then put a road where you could drive a car through the tree, and there was still plenty of tree on both sides. I don't even know how those trees exist. Like, it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, that's fake.
It's weird.
It's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's not fake.
It's weird.
Yeah. We saw one of the most beautiful trees when we went on the road to Hana, when we went to Maui.
Yeah.
And those rainbow trees, where the bark kind of like peels off, and underneath it's like all these different colors in the trunk of the tree.
I remember that.
The road to Hana was awesome.
That was my favorite part of the trip. I mean, besides the marriage part.
Yeah, we got married in Maui. That was the second part. It's the second. It's obvious. Yeah. So moving on. When we talk about designating all of this land, federal land, national forests, national parks, this is kind of where the uncomfortable part comes in, and I'm going to have to talk about it because we're talking about Roosevelt in general, because a lot of this land was originally Native American land. Now, on the upside, because I was like, how did Roosevelt feel about Native American people and populations? And the fact is that he genuinely cared about Native American peoples. He admired many indigenous cultures, especially what he saw as their courage, hunting skills, and endurance. He opposed wanton violence against Native people and condemned some of the worst abuses, which is actually rare at this point in time of how people treated Native Americans. He believed that Native Americans should be treated humanely within American society, and he supported education and citizenship pathways for individuals. This was at a point in time when many white people thought that Native Americans were subhuman, which is just gross. Like, it's just really disgusting. So it did put him ahead of his contemporaries. That part is very true. He believed that all people should be treated well. However, he believed that Native Americans should assimilate into American society, even if that meant the destruction of their culture. That's not good. He did not believe that tribes should retain their sovereignty. He did not believe tribal claims should override U.S. expansion. He did not believe indigenous nations had a right to exist as separate political entities. He thought that westward expansion and land seizure was inevitable, ultimately civilizing, and justified by what he saw as national progress. So that's not good. Roosevelt once described the displacement of Native Americans as a tragic but necessary outcome of American expansion. And that is terrible. Nobody likes that. That's bad. Imperialism? Nope. It's not good. Moving on. I don't have anything else to say about that because it's bad. Moving on. Now, here is a cutie little story. In 1902, while Theodore Roosevelt is president, he goes on a hunting trip in Mississippi. The hunt isn't going well. After days with no success, Roosevelt's guide tracks down a black bear. They injure it purposefully and tie it to a tree so that the president can shoot it to avoid going home empty-handed. Ew. Roosevelt flat out refuses. He thinks it's disgusting. He says the bear is already helpless and that killing it this way would be unsportsmanlike. Now, he's right, but instead, he orders the bear to be put down humanely to end its suffering, but he will not take the shot itself. So this moment is witnessed, reported, and then cartooned. A political cartoon appears shortly afterward showing Roosevelt refusing to shoot a small, gentle-looking bear. This image spreads very quickly. Newspapers run with it. They love it. The public latches on to the contrast between Roosevelt's tough, aggressive persona and this moment, this sweet little moment with this bear. And then, this is so cute. A shopkeeper in New York creates a stuffed bear and displays it in his window, calling it Teddy's Bear. He gets Roosevelt's permission to use his nickname, which he agrees to. This toy explodes in popularity, and this is why we have the teddy bear today.
Did not know that.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, did not know that.
Yeah. American culture right there at the teddy bear.
Yep.
All kids have a teddy bear.
That's worth this story alone.
Isn't that cute? Yeah. Yeah. Going back to the presidency, there's no more cute freaking stories in here. That's not true. I got more cute stories. Once Theodore Roosevelt settles into the presidency, something important shifts. He no longer treats the office as a reactionary role. He's going to turn it into an instrument. This is where Roosevelt moves from reformer to enforcer. Roosevelt believes the United States is no longer a minor power, and pretending otherwise is dangerous. He is deeply skeptical. He is deeply skeptical of isolation and equally so of moral posturing without enforcement. His foreign policy philosophy becomes known as big stick diplomacy.
Okay.
Now, that could go in a couple of different directions, but the idea is simple here. It's not what you think. It is. Negotiate calmly, but make sure everyone knows you can back it up. We got some firepower here, people. This plays out most clearly in Latin America and the Caribbean. This is interesting. Roosevelt expands the Monroe Document, and it becomes known as the Roosevelt Corollary. Pop quiz, what is the Monroe Doctrine? You don't know. I didn't know, by the way. Really didn't. I should have, because it's a big deal. In 1823, James Monroe is the president, and he creates this doctrine which says that the Western Hemisphere is closed to new European colonization. We're not taking any more of England's crap, okay? European powers must not interfere in the affairs of independent nations in the Americas. In return, the U.S. promises not to interfere in European wars or internal European politics. This is, of course, before the World Wars, because sometimes you got to work together. But anyways, just Europe, stay out of America. Thanks. Bye. Now, the Roosevelt Corollary in 1904, Roosevelt adds to this and basically says, if a country in Latin America is unstable, corrupt, or unable to pay its debts, the United States has the right to intervene directly to prevent European involvement. His logic is, if Europe is going to use instability as an excuse to intervene, then the U.S. should step in first and stabilize the situation. So really, this is where Roosevelt, again, not so good. It's imperialism. We're more powerful. This is fine. Right. We'll take it. It's fine. It's fine. That's how we ended up with Puerto Rico. The Panama Canal. Okay, this is the most tangible result of this mindset is the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal. When negotiations with Colombia stall, Roosevelt supports Panama's independence movement and quickly recognizes the new government. The U.S. secures the right to build and control the canal zone almost immediately, which they do. From a modern perspective, looking back, this is very heavy-handed and this is ethically, no, I don't think so. But at the time, Roosevelt thought that it was practical. Now, let's be quite clear. We know what the canal is. It dramatically reshapes global trade. Naval power, American influences, it shortens travel between oceans and cements the U.S. as a global player. This had nothing to do with Panama and their independence. This had everything to do with bringing trade to the United States.
Right.
Smart, but also, I don't know about that. Now, let's get to the part that you may be the most interested in is, but Jen, you said Roosevelt changed the history of football. So let's talk about it. Okay. The first official American football game was played on November 6, 1869, between Rutgers and Princeton. It does not look like what we know as football. And look, I know soccer is football, but this is American football, and that's just what we call it. I can't help you there. I didn't name it. I'm just telling the story. But when it was originally formed, it was closer to soccer with some rugby influence. I've never watched rugby. I don't know what happens. I think they beat each other up there's something to do with the scrum, and they all just beat the shit out of each other. I assume.
Kind of.
There was very limited carrying of the ball. There were these big, large, chaotic scrums. And it was almost entirely on college campuses in the late 1800s. And rules vary wildly by school. The games are violent. Incredibly violent, disorganized, no regulations. And by the 1890s, football is more like rugby, featuring mass formations like one called the flying wedge. Mm-hmm. Whatever the fuck that means. I assume it's wedge. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But by 1905, 18 players die in a single season. This is not football like we know today. This is bad.
Love of the sport.
That's bad. Hundreds suffer severe injuries. Public pressure is mounting to ban football outright, and universities are refusing to acknowledge it. They're like, being a new, it's fine. I guess. I don't know. So Theodore Roosevelt is a huge football fan. Of course he does. I mean, this is right up his alley. But he doesn't like pointless brutality. We learned that with the teddy bear story. He's not into just, no. And in 1905, the year that this house was born, in 1905, he summons leaders from Harvard, Yale, and Princeton to the White House. Now, they're probably thinking, we're fancy. And he's like, no, reform football or I'm getting rid of it. I'm going to ban it. I'm the president. You have to listen. So they're like, oh, shit. And over the next 2 years, the flying wedge is banned. Thank goodness. Mass formations are restricted. Neutral zones are created. I don't know what that means. The forward pass is legalized in 1906. I think this is huge. I know that the forward pass means that the ball is going forward. I don't know what else that means. What does that mean?
They threw the ball.
Forward.
Yeah.
Obviously. Why would you throw it backwards? That's just dumb. Safer tackling standards are encouraged. Now, this is before the targeting rule isn't put in place.
A few years before, yeah.
How do you feel about the targeting rule?
It's bullshit.
Well, I think that people are being saved. Their lives are being saved, probably. Yep. I don't know. And then the distance to first down is standardized. At one point, they only had 3 downs to get 10 yards. No, they have 4. Thanks, Teddy.
You're good.
I know. They also spread the players across the field. Reduce pileups. That sounds bad. They encourage speed, skill, and strategy over raw force. Yeah. Teddy Roosevelt shaped the game of football as it is today.
I agree.
Fascinating.
You wouldn't appreciate the tush push.
I don't know what that means.
It's another formation that's controversial.
I don't know what it means, but I've also heard of the flea flicker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it means.
That's not controversial.
Oh, the tush push? I assume it's pushing somebody's ass somewhere.
Pretty much.
Forward. Motion.
There you go.
I make up the fact that I don't know what's happening in football when I really do what's going on. I do enjoy some football. I like it when the teams that I like win, and if my teams that I like are not winning, then I don't want to be anywhere around it.
You like it more the fact that I'm calmer than I was 15 years ago.
Oh, facts.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. I'm calmer. I'm calmer.
It's nice. Yep. All right. So a couple of little stories about Roosevelt. We talked a little bit. Roosevelt boxes constantly, even during his presidency. I don't know where he found the time in between making national parks and teddy bears and changing the life of football. Like, I don't even know, but he boxed all the time. And this is not just expedition sparring. This is like real, live, punch in the face boxing. And at some point in the White House, he takes a blow to the face that causes a retinal detachment, to which he lost complete vision in his left eye.
Okay.
He tells no one. He refuses to make it public. It didn't come out until later on.
Interesting.
I mean, and he just keeps on boxing like a fucking fool. Like, this guy has no chill. He has no chill. He does switch to judo and wrestling later, but that is because he started to get older and his body just couldn't sustain the boxing anymore. But this guy, he's out of control. Now, from 1904 to 1905, Roosevelt helps mediate the end of the Russo-Japanese War. Now, this is a brutal conflict between Russia and Japan over control of Manchuria and Korea. Okay? He brings both sides to the negotiating table, hosts talks in Portsmouth, New Hampshire?
Portsmouth? I'm not sure.
It's spelled Portsmouth.
I don't know.
One word.
Portsmouth? I don't know.
Well, there you go. He applies pressure, compromise, and leverage, and he helps broker a peace treaty neither side loves, but they accept it. And for this, in 1906, he is the first American to receive the Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay.
This guy, like, he's just so cool. Like, he's got some problems, okay? And like, he's got the imperialism, the views on Native Americans. It's not cool.
Well, it's hard to be perfect.
Now, while Roosevelt is governing aggressively in boxing, writing, whatever, his home life is loud and unpredictable. This guy, his children run wild in the White House. He has 6 children. They bring animals inside. They're sliding down banisters. A pony reportedly rides the elevator. They are out of control. And this really cements his image in another way of Roosevelt does not separate his life and put it in nice, neat compartments. All of this work, family, morality, energy, and all this mess is coexisting in the White House all at one time. The White House is not a shrine for Roosevelt. It is lived in. And now we have to talk about Alice, his daughter. Alice Lee Roosevelt Longworth is Theodore Roosevelt's eldest child. From the moment she is old enough to be noticed, she is a problem, a public problem, and she's enthusiastic about how much of a problem is. She grows up in the White House and refuses to behave like a presidential daughter. She smokes, she gambles, she talks back. She's a talker backer. She breaks social rules as if they're like offending her, and at one point, she keeps a pet snake named Emily Spinach in her purse. Roosevelt adores her as much as he adores his wife, the wife that died, probably Edith too. I think he adored both of his wives. But he's completely overwhelmed by her. And he once famously says, I can either run the country or I can attend to Alice, but I cannot possibly do both. And that was his justification for why she is running wild, because he's being president. And yeah, Alice becomes a celebrity in her own right. Newspapers follow her. Society loves to see what she's up to, even while condemning her. And she represents a new kind of public woman that is independent, sharp-tongued, unapologetic at a time that was impolite for America. So she is most certainly a modern woman before that concept existed. And in many ways, she is an extension of her father's personality. Most certainly.
Right.
Most certainly. She's restless, defiant, uninterested in restraint, and unwilling to be quiet just to make others comfortable. I love Alice. She's a fun character. Yep. All right, so we're moving on. 1908. Theodore Roosevelt does something almost no one in his position does willingly. He steps aside. He announces he will not be seeking another term as president, honoring a promise he made to himself after taking office. He supports his chosen successor, William Howard Taft, believing that the reforms he set into motion will continue under a steadier, less volatile hand. Now, what do you know about Taft? I love these questions. Yeah. So Taft was a very large man. He had to order a custom-sized bathtub for the White House because he could not quite fit into a regular one.
Okay.
There was a very mean political cartoon about him getting stuck in a bathtub, and it turned into lore, and people think that that is true. It is not. Once out of office, Roosevelt travels, he hunts, he writes, he gives speeches. He's still living his best life, but he does not disengage. He watches closely, and he is very angry watching the Taft presidency because Taft governs cautiously. He compromises. He maintains relationships that Roosevelt probably would have been willing to burn to the ground. And this, to Roosevelt, is unacceptable. The break between them becomes public and bitter, and by 1912, Roosevelt is done with this shit. Okay? He challenges his own party for the next presidency. And the Republican establishment did not want to deal with him again. They blocked him. And so he walks and he forms a third party because, of course, he did. Why would he do anything else? This is called the Progressive Party, quickly nicknamed the Bull Moose Party, after Roosevelt declares he feels as strong as a bull moose.
Okay.
I mean, this guy, there's no stopping him. This is not a vanity run. He feels like this is an attack on political inertia. He does not like what this is doing. His platform includes labor protection, corporate regulation, women's suffrage, which we still didn't have until 1920. We couldn't fucking vote. Whatever. Couldn't even have a credit card until the 70s, but that's fine. It also included expanded democratic reforms. At the time, this is radical. Okay, this is very, very progressive. And now we have the moment that he's already a legend since San Juan Hill, okay? But now we're going to cement it into history. This is it. This is his moment, okay? During the campaign, Roosevelt is shot in Milwaukee by a would-be assassin. The bullet lodges in his chest, slowed by the long-ass folded speech in his pocket and a glasses case, okay? He, gets shot in the chest. He looks down, examines himself. He's like, it's not fatal. I'm fine. And he gives a 90-minute speech. An hour and a half this guy talks. Blood visible. He's steady. He doesn't waver. His voice isn't quite...
That's crazy.
What? This guy, only after he gives an hour and a half speech, everybody else was exhausted, and this guy's like, all right, we can go to the hospital now. It's fine. I'll get treatment now. Thanks. I'm surprised he didn't whip out a knife and dig it out himself. Jesus, this guy. Ultimately, the campaign fails because the United States doesn't like a third party. Okay? They just don't. They got two. They both suck. I'm just saying that out loud. I'm just saying the parties themselves, not the people. Some of the people suck. Not all the people. But some do.
It's accurate.
But the two-party system is really detrimental to everybody. I'm just saying. We should... It's not the point of it. All of this is not the point. So, he loses. But this moment just cements, like, that's it. Like, he's done. He's like the greatest American hero. He survives a bullet to the chest, and he's like, let's just keep talking. It's fine. Like, it's fine. That's fine. That's fine. And from here on out, he decides he's not gonna, there's no more running for a presidency for him. He's now going to work on how he is going to be remembered. He continues writing, because of course he does. I don't think he ever stopped. I think he still wrote even while he was boxing. It's fine. He's still making speeches, arguing, reframing his legacy in real time, defending his choices, revising his thinking in some places, and then he doubles down in others. And he's not seeking like retirement here. I think he's just going for relevancy. And then after losing the election in 1912, he leaves the political stage. He decides to go on an expedition to South America to explore and map an uncharted tributary of the Amazon River, later named the River of Doubt. Okie dokie. During this time, the expedition faces impassable terrain, starvation, infected wounds, disease, death of crew members, near mutiny, because why wouldn't you? Roosevelt himself contracts malaria, suffers a severe leg infection that turns to gangrene, loses 50 pounds, becomes so weak he suggests he be left behind to die so the others can survive. But somehow they decided not to do that, and he made it out alive. What the fuck is even happening? After this insane expedition, he does not fade into the woodwork. Roosevelt now understands that he needs to craft his legacy while he's still alive. He thinks about how history will judge leaders, not kindly or cruelly, but honestly. He wants to be remembered honestly. And he starts revising his own arguments and critiquing his earlier positions with the frankness that surprises people who expect certainty from him. He does not pretend that he was right about everything. And in fact, this is what sets him apart. Roosevelt publicly admits his misjudgment. He revises opinions on policy. He concedes when outcomes fail to match intentions, and he does not do this with theatrical apology and without denial. To him, admitting error is not humiliation. It is a part of leadership and how leaders should lead responsibly. I think this is just his biggest, most important legacy, in that he was not trying to protect his image at all costs. He protects his sense of obligations. And he believed that leaders owe the public not just action, but reflection and accountability. And there is one speech that he delivered in Paris in 1910. This is after leaving the presidency. And he said, "It is not the critic who counts. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena." And I think that's it. That's my whole story. That's everything. Not everything about, I just hit the high points.
You did. Right.
Like, this guy, no chill. What in the heck was he doing?
Yeah, this is one of those stories where I could have just, been in another room. Let me rephrase that. It's one of those stories where I didn't need a microphone because I just sit here and listen to you because you're passionate about it, and it's very, not funny is the right word, but you get my point. So it's cute and amusing. So therefore, I just sat back and listened. course, I'm sure everybody else is like, yeah, you don't need to say anything, jackass.
I don't think that's true. I like it when you have things to
So,
say.
yeah, so this one I didn't have much to say. And it was a good story, though. It really was. It's no joke.
What do you think? Did you know any of this? A lot of this I didn't know. I mean, I knew
No.
I knew the high points. I knew about the national forests and parks.
I
That
wouldn't
was
have been able to tell you that right up now. I would not have been able to tell you that.
Oh,
No.
he is the reason.
Right.
I mean, hands down. I have always that's my favorite fact about him, just
Right.
because he saved so much of the land in this country and helped preserve it. Because we know that corporations would have gobbled them up for certain. Not that the land and the resources that come from it are not valuable. Of course they are.
Yeah.
We got to use the resources we have. But also, hell, that shit would be gone by now.
I'm surprised that it is just as equally surprising the fact that it hasn't changed since then, for the most part. For the most part. So.
Yep.
Some of it.
Yep. So, very cool guy, not without faults, but both Roosevelt presidents were extremely famous, extremely resourceful, and put in some major changes to this country, I think that we could say. I can talk about Franklin Delano Roosevelt at another time because he is just as equally interesting. Of course, I mean, wartime presidents get a lot of attention, and yep. So that is that. If you want to help our little podcast grow, I would love that. We've got 33 subscribers. Last time you listened, we only had 32. We got one today. I don't know who it is. Thanks. That's fun. But listen, I know everybody hates the whole rate, review, and subscribe thing because even I listen to podcasts and I'm like, whatever. But seriously, it does help. If you're our friend and you want to be our friend, you should just click that like button. That would be great. So stay out of politics, though, because nobody needs to listen to that shit. So, bye. Okay. That's my George Bush laugh.
Oh, my God.